Seeing as we are in the grip of a homelessness crisis, a home affordability crisis, and a rental crisis, it may be apposite to see what's going on at the other end of town. There's a crisis there too. There's a crisis about what to do with all the tax-free profits on the family home, the good old family home. Yes, they're in a grip of an epidemic, a mansion flipping epidemic of rebuilds and renovations. They are under siege from interior designers with double-barreled names because, you see, there is no tax on the family home. In fact, there was $48 billion in capital gains tax concessions on what they call main residences last year alone. $48 billion, that's about the same amount the government spends on the aged pension each year. Meanwhile, we see reports of 1,600 Australians pushed into homelessness every month as the housing crisis deepens. Woman goes from paying $1,200 a week to living in a tent in Enmore Park. These sorts of stories. But if you've just found yourself in a tent, rest assured you'll still have a job. If you still have a job and you pay tax on your wages, at least you're still subsidising somebody else's home, like somebody's tax-free family mansion. Maybe like this one, to quote the property porn press, "Glorious maths mansion makes 16 million in just 3 years." Then followed the eulogy. What you won't see in this sort of press are the words tax-free. The person made $16 million tax-free or not, because of course that's a secret. All you will see is fulsome, oleaginous eulogy. The Tivoli Avenue home has appeared in Vogue spreads and feature films such as Mao's Last Dancer, been the setting for TV shows The Bachelor, The Voice and Married at First Sight. Now, Albo was asked recently if taxing the family home might be on the cards. There would be no tax on the family home, he answered emphatically, quote,
"We are not going to impact the family home.
Full stop, exclamation mark, said Four Homes Albo. Okay, that's unfair to Albo. It's one home and 3 investment properties, but you get the picture. You can hardly blame Albo either. His political antennae, as we know, are very keen, and taxing the family home is political poison. Because the minute any reasonable proposition, say capital gains tax on property worth more than $5 million, was plonked on the table, some lobby group or other will be out of the blocks with a campaign in the Murdoch media and Nine Entertainment, showcasing an old couple on Zimmer frames looking forlorn and beleaguered, saying, "We bought our home back in 1952 for $25,000. Now they want to tax us out of our nursing home." This sort of thing. Taxing the family home is just too damn politically risky, although everybody who's au fait with the housing flipping epidemic, the frenzy, knows it's a rort. It's the biggest rort at the big end of town. Why invest in a company? Why employ people when you can do a reno and flip it to some Chinese investors and the game keeps on going? To the yin and the yang then, rents are up 20% and rising for average Australians. 140,000 people are homeless, out of a home. According to the Salvos in 21-22, more than 272,000 people sought help from homelessness agencies. Of these, 56% were at risk of homelessness rather than homeless. Domestic violence, of course, plays a big part in this. The other side of town, quote, "Luxury car dealer Neville Crichton has pulled off the ultimate trophy home deal, swapping his recently sold $60.8 million Point Piper mansion to buy a mini-me version up the road for almost half the price." A mini-me. You've got to love that. Crichton's downsizer digs are on the same Point Piper water frontage where sources say he has paid about $33 million for the distinctive glass-fronted residence of Karen Zarmel, wife of mining entrepreneur Gary Zarmel. That's the mini-me, the $33 million mini-me. Why not? It's legal. Crichton's new home was previously owned by media mogul Lachlan Murdoch and his wife Sarah until they sold it to Zarmel for $20.6 million in 2005. Did they say it was tax-free? We don't know. But $20.6 million to $60 million is a very nice turn indeed. On the same street, Struggle Street, Wolseley Road, Point Piper, we have Frank Lowy, Car Wash King Anthony Sahada, former PM, of course, Malcolm Turnbull, and Kerry Stokes' lawyer Bruce McWilliam is nearby on Wonalla Road. Then there's medical entrepreneur Glenn Haifa. Glenn buys in Willara in 2018 for $6.3 million, puts it on the market in April 2022 for $18 million. He then buys $60 million Darling Point property in April 2022 from Lisa Allen. Lisa had bought it in 2013 for $32 million, double the money. To be precise, the home was transferred into Lisa's name in 2020. How about fashion influencer Roxy Jacinto?
Never, ever, ever be basic for nobody. Honey, shine.
Roxy bought a home in Hopetoun Avenue, Vaucluse for $6.5 million in 2018 and sold it in May this year for $16 million. Nice work if you can get it. Did she pay tax? We don't know, but it's the family home, so probably not. But even if she did, even if CGT was paid, it would be at 25%, far less than the marginal rate for high income earners. It's a rort on a rort, but as we know with rorts, it's only a rort if you're not there, if you're not involved, if you're not in it. Now, we're going on press reports for all this, principally from the property media group Domain. And according to Domain, Bruce McWilliam, Point Piper man, Kerry Stokes' lieutenant, has $100 million worth of Eastern Suburbs property. He's been particularly active, just like the others mentioned here. We don't know what Bruce's tax position is. That's a secret. To be fair, the problem here is government policy. It's the law to be able to do this. It's not the person selling their properties for massive tax-free gains, but it's clearly unfair policy when you consider the plight of homeless people in this country. Like this woman, how life changed forever as mum and kids were forced into a tent. Would have been good for the first couple of nights because kids love tents, but it would have worn very thin after that. But back to Bruce. In 2007, Bruce bought Bellevue Hill home for his wife, Nicole, for $4.7 million. The rented property, was sold in 2021 for $9 million after just 8 days on the market. Nice turn there. Then Bruce sells his Point Piper pad, $10.6 million in 2013, from murderer Ron Medich's old joint, for $32 million in March 2021. Now, we don't know whether they were both family homes or what the tax status was, because these things are a secret, but we do know there's no tax on the family home, even a home the size to house an army barracks. According to Domain, trophy home collector and Network 7 commercial director Bruce McWilliam sold his Point Piper home earlier this week, this is October 2017, for about $16.5 million. That's another one. His best known trophy trade was the $33.5 million sale in 2013, same year, of the waterfront mansion known as Bang & Olufsen's house to Chinese businessman Jerry Qiu Yaju, chairman of textile maker Shandong Rui Science and Technology Group. The 1920s mansion Elstree that sits behind it was also sold by McWilliam in 2008 for $22 million to Kerry Packer confidant Ben Tilley. We can't imagine these are all family homes, but the CGT is nicely discounted anyway, and some of them may have been. If you take a drive around the eastern suburbs, there are cranes bobbing up everywhere. Cranes used to be, of course, a thing for commercial properties, which are big buildings, but now the proliferation of mansions across the leafy suburbs of all the capital cities has them bobbing up in Peppermint Grove, Point Piper, Darling Point, Toorak, you name it. Now, to be fair to Albo, he is trying to do something about homelessness. The HAF, the Housing Affordability Future Fund, which is marginally better than subsidised tents. How big is the HAF compared to the $48 billion in capital gains tax breaks? How big's this spend on social housing? Well, it's not a spend, it's a loan. And the profits from that invested money will go to, hopefully, the target is 30,000 social housing abodes a year. It doesn't really rate because the HAF is a loan and not a government spend. And so it is due to government policy and rising cost of living due to interest rates, which is a global thing as well. We see the rise in couch surfing, living in vans, coming back to mum and dad's place at an increasingly old age, and even hot bedding, although we think hot bedding is probably a beat up. Probably it happened once and it became a media story. There was a furious debate the other day about a bloke in Gladstone, Queensland, who advertised a tent spot in his backyard for $380 a week. Here, use my backyard for a tent and give me $380 a week for it. But there's no debate at all about billionaires making $20 million tax-free turns by flipping their family homes. Needs to be addressed. Why is there no debate? Well, it's not in the mainstream media because it's not the sort of story which media executives with their family homes up the chain from the journalists want publicised. They don't want to pay tax on their family homes. Simple. Therefore, it's all about wonderful, lavish homes and beautiful people, but nothing about the tax. What is driving this mansion flipping epidemic? Of course, there are solutions to all these things. For the Airbnb mafia squeezing out renters across the country, you simply shut down the tax rate for landlords claiming a year's tax deductions on a property they might only let out for a fraction of the year. For the Chinese money pouring into Australian residential property, propping up prices, squeezing out renters too, simply introduce the money laundering laws that the government pledged to introduce 16 years ago and capture accountants, property developers and lawyers who are free to launder money, who are not captured by the Tranche 1 of the AML-CTF anti-money laundering laws. And as for the family home flippers, simply tax the profit at 50% of proceeds or something like that. The policy pointy-headed gurus can work all that out. We're just here to diagnose a problem. It's severely unfair. The answers are out there. At the moment, just not the political will.